As 2025 draws to a close, we're unwrapping the latest off-season gifts the Cardinals have left for us under the tree, giving our thoughts on the Willson Contreras trade, and we continue to look forward towards 2026 on this episode of the Viva Albertos podcast.
Smith corks one into right, down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy.
Breeze hits it in the air to center. We will see you tomorrow night.
This is the Viva Albertos podcast on SB Nation. Welcome into another episode of the Viva Albertos podcast. As always, I am your host, Jake Wood. I am joined by fellow writers Gabe Simons and Scott Plaza. Happy holidays, fellas. Did Santa leave everything under your tree you were hoping for?
Yeah, this was the first Christmas where my daughter kind of knew what was going on. So that meant my wife and I had to also act like we knew what was going on. So it was less of, just throw things under the tree. She had to be strategic about the placement of everything, what's from Santa, what's not. So it was a lot more involved than I wanted to be on Christmas.
Welcome to the show. How about you, Gabe?
Yeah, I got a lot of practical things like a blender and some books to read. I really feel like an adult nowadays whenever I get presents.
Just don't put the books in the blender.
Yeah, right. I'll try to avoid that, but it's so tempting.
What books did you get? Was it anything like interesting to read?
I got I think it's called The Big Nowhere by James Elroy. I got what else did I get? I have like 20 unread books right now. And they got added to the I asked for them, so it's not like they were out of nowhere, but James Elroy one is the only one that I can think of right now, but I just some crime stuff, and I just didn't read for like 10 years, and I'm trying to catch up.
Oh, cool. So. I still don't read. I guess I'm one of those people who, and not to make me sound like super dumb or anything like that, but like if there's not a picture already like associated with it, it's hard for me to kind of create that picture in my mind. Like, sure. And I'm also one of those people that like I forget what I read like 20 seconds beforehand. So I'm like, wait, what did I just read? And then I have to read it again. And then the fact that I have to read a page like 3 different times just to like digest what I just read makes me entirely like exhausted by the time I get through 3 or 4 pages. I'm like, this is stupid. So
Are you dyslexic?
No, I can read perfectly fine. And I don't enjoy the act of reading and creating the picture in my mind. I would rather have like a movie, like the story projected in front of me, and I can follow it along that way. And if that makes me sound really dumb and simple, that's okay. I'm okay with. I accept that. But I find myself incapable of like doing it that way. I don't know. All the more power to the people who do enjoy reading, like that is an active hobby for them. I just cannot do it, and find any type of enjoyment.
Most of America agrees with you for what it's worth.
and I don't mean to make it into that like dumb American, like incapable of like finer entertainment or whatever. But it's like that's just, I don't know. That's the way I am. That's the way I consume, interesting entertainment. So. But Scott, back to you for a second. What did you get for Christmas?
I have become, whether I wanted to or not, the chef while I've been on paternity leave, which is great. So I've been on paternity leave for the last 2 months, and it's winter break from teaching right now. So I've had a lot of time to learn and figure things out around the kitchen. So I ended up getting a few utensils, a couple new kitchen knives, which if your high school friend reaches out to you and they have a business opportunity for you and it's Cutco knives, just buy one knife. It'll change your life. I got a bunch new of kitchen utensils, and I learned how to make Beijing beef, mocking from Panda Express for my first meal. So that's where I've been for the last couple weeks.
Well, Scott, Santa may have left everything you wanted under the tree, but Santa Bloom took a big old crap in your stocking because he traded Willson Contreras 3 days before Christmas, and you understandably said online, nobody talk to me. So what I want you to do is talk to me about your initial reaction, and then we can kind of get into the return of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. coming into the offseason, I believe Jake took our temperature about what we thought the odds of people being traded were. And Gabe, I think you put Contreras at above 50%, if I recall. And I put him, I think, near zero. And I think that was more my hopium coming in. And the fact that our readers happened to make fun of my article last week that was talking about Alec Burleson being the first baseman of the future. And then a few hours later, Willson Contreras was traded. So a lot of it came into kind of my question marks at first base, but also the fact that Willson Contreras was something so different than what we have seen when we think about the Cardinal way. I am in Chicago. I was at Willson Contreras' first major league game where he hit a home run in his first at bat. And I got to experience the hatred towards him while he was a member of the Cubs and, was doing his thing. But I was also the first to clamor for his signing. I thought he was the perfect fit at the perfect time for that catching transition. And he brought that, again, that energy, that fire that Cardinal Nation has tend to look down upon because we are used to, quote, playing the game the right way. And the energy and things that he did for one, my dad is like, I will never be a Willson Contreras fan. I just don't like it. I don't like the way he does this thing. But he was, to me, was such a breath of fresh air that allowed players, and will be like my article was today, would be that stepping stone for somebody like Mason Wynn and Victor Scott to have that energy, that emotion. And I thought he was such a great leader. I mentioned how he was stepping up and challenging pitchers who were not doing the same for him. He was getting hit consistently, and he's like, I would love, to not do that. I'd love my pitchers to have my back. But when your entire rotation is 90-mile-an-hour fastballers, it's tough to make that adjustment. But his departure, I think, is going to be felt more than just his team leading 20 homers. I think we always talk about Brendan Donovan being that veteran presence, but I view him and his leadership as the Nolan Arenado and the Paul Goldschmidt silent leader, do as I do. Even though Donovan, as we've seen on dealing the cards and doing stuff with them, like he is a very, I think he's very grounded in what he does. But I think the way that Contreras could lead a locker room could have been that transition for Mason Wynn and Victor Scott and guys like those to take over and kind of put some energy into St. Louis that will get fans excited to come to the ballpark in a time when wins may not be what we want.
Yeah, so the Willson Contreras trade that we're talking about, if you've been living under a rock for the last 2 weeks or so, the Cardinals sent Willson Contreras and $8 million to the Boston Red Sox for right-handed pitcher Hunter Dobbins, right-handed prospect Joyker Fajardo, and right-hander Blake Aida. Gabe, what did you think of the return, and how do you think it stacks up to the Sonny Gray trade that the Cardinals made with Boston from a month ago?
I think if you compare it to the Gray trade, they are kind of mirrors of each other. Very similar. You get an MLB ready starting pitcher, then sort of a high upside pitching prospect. The only difference is Fajardo is maybe a year away from being where Brandon Clark is now, as far as like how he's viewed nationally. But I mean, he was 18 in low A and a little bit in the complex league, and he just dominated down there. And he'll probably pitch most of next year in high A as a 19-year-old. And just for frame of reference, albeit he's had injury problems, but Tim Kentz was 19 when he first burst on the scene after he got drafted, throwing 50 innings of elite ball, whereas he threw 70 innings combined. So he's for me ahead of Hentz, even though he's not viewed the same way, as a prospect. And I think with a good year, he'll be a top 100 prospect next year. My point basically is that they're very similar trades. MLB ready starting pitcher, and then your high upside guy who's a little bit farther away. This guy's a year behind Clark, although he's 3 years younger than Clark. So, I mean, I'm pretty happy with the return. I think a lot of it depends on, to some extent, Fajardo's development, but also Dobbins might be like a league average starting pitcher right away, which I don't know if you could ask for like a whole lot more from 2 years of a guy who's getting paid more or less fairly, even though the Cardinals threw in $8 million. But yeah, I'm not as enthused as the Sonny Gray trade, just because that was like Richard Fitz was like a former top 100 prospect. He's had a little bit of an injury problem last year, and Clark is a top 100 prospect. So it felt like they got way more than what I was expecting for a guy getting paid 40 million.
Right.
Whereas Contreras seemed like his deal was a little bit of a bargain. So I was expecting not a better return, but I I'm just like less surprised that it's a solid return than I was for Gray.
I guess
So
that
I feel
would
pretty good about it.
I guess that would be the comparable and only kicking in 8 million as opposed to like the 20 million they sent for Sonny Gray. I get that they're like Sonny Gray's making double basically what Willson Contreras is, but I also can understand where the higher the more money you're willing to kick in, the higher level prospect you're buying in return essentially. And that's nothing against Fajardo. It's more so just like he's like you said, he's further away. I think of Fajardo a little bit kind of like a high school pitcher basically coming out. Like I'm trying to think of him in similar terms as that, even though he's international. You still it's a guy that's going to be 2 or 3 at minimum years away. You want to slow play him. You don't want to rush him. You want to make sure that he fully bakes all the way through the minor leagues. To throw it back to Scott's cooking reference at the start of the show. So, Scott, I want to ask you, as the former pitcher, what have you thought about the Cardinals collecting, just sheer depth across the majors and minor league systems so far this offseason for the Cardinals, and like the pitching that they are bringing in? Like, how nice is it that the Cardinals finally aren't going to have the question, really, it seems, of depth as much as like, okay, what I think the next step question is like, what is the quality of this depth we're going to be getting into?
Yeah, I think that second part of the question was big because I think if these deals were standalone, without anything that we saw during the season or in the draft, I'd be kind of like, oh my gosh, here we go again with the contact, not high velocity, high strikeout guys. But when you pair it with what they targeted in the trade deadline deals and what they added in the draft, I think that depth question now becomes it's a lot of that's definitely there in quantity, but I think the higher end quality is also there, which is important. So, as far as this offseason more being about depth, I think when paired with what they did during the regular season, I feel much better about where the development's going because we do have the high upside prospects that might have a little bit more questions to them. But if they don't pan out, then we do have these depth options with that potential upside that may not be as high, but still could be major league quality contributors. That's the encouraging part to me is that they're taking the chance on the lottery tickets, but they're also supplementing that with the higher potential for actually contributing at the major league level.
So, like when you think about the sheer amount of pitching prospects that they're bringing into the organization. I've been engaging with a few people online, and as dangerous as that is, like reminding people that pitching prospects they're not all going to like go to the major. They're not all acquired with the intention of them making it to the major leagues to be something for the Cardinals one day. You want to accumulate this much depth of pitching if not only are you trying to, cover your depth, but in future years, you're anticipating using some of that depth to go out and resolve some of your other needs. You think about in baseball, the best form of currency is young pitching. And so what are the Cardinals acquiring a lot of right now? It's young pitching to load up to go forward. So I've been engaging with a few people who have been saying the things of like, where are the young bats at to go with all of these young minor league arms? Well, you need take a step back and understand that the Cardinals have 6 different catchers. The Cardinals have, 15 different interesting arms now. Not all of these guys are going to be in the major leagues for the Cardinals. Some of these guys are going to have to be used as pieces to go out and get you what you need. Simply, when you look at it from the lens of they're just accumulating as much interesting high upside talent as they possibly can, and then they're going to use what they need to fill out their needs at the major league level, and then whatever surplus they have that they don't really need or doesn't necessarily fit, they will use and target and go and kind of mold the clay how they want to. So I kind of caution people who are a little bit frustrated or misunderstanding kind of how the Cardinals are approaching things, and just allow the process to work out. The way I explain it is don't judge it just from step A. Wait for B, C, D, and E to kind of occur before we fully understand, what it is that this new front office is trying to accomplish with all of these moves. And, frankly, from my standpoint, I'm very excited and encouraged by what the Cardinals have done and are continuing to do and what they're bringing in. I also think that it allows the Cardinals with a Brendan Donovan to now seek just the highest upside player possible in return, rather than, it's got to be a pitcher. It's got to be, somebody who they can install into their rotation. It's got to be, it's pigeonholed into something specific. Now, if you find a shortstop that is like a 60 future value, I'm not saying that, another team is going to trade you that, but if that comes onto the table, you don't have to be like, oh, well, I mean, that's nice, but it's not exactly what we're looking for. No, you sit there, you take that piece and you say, thank you very much for doing business, and you move forward. So for me, I really like that they've taken care of kind of the underlying need part of the pitching. And now that they have their best asset remaining still in a Brendan Donovan, they can approach it and attack it from a position of strength where they can essentially of leverage and just say, give us the best piece you can in return, and we'll use that to kind of add to our future core.
And Jake,
yes,
a good example of what you're talking about is the team we traded with twice, the Boston Red Sox. They traded us 5 pitchers of varying, ability and prospect thing, and they could do so because they had a ton of pitchers in their system. Bloom basically copied what he did over there, and then just like, let me take some of these pitchers that you guys have developed, and then later on he'll probably, maybe not those specific guys, but he'll trade some of the pitching depth to supplement the MLB roster when we're ready to go all in. So that's what you're saying. I think you just look at what the Red Sox did basically as maybe our future.
Correct. But also the Red Sox also had guys at the top of their system, like a Roman Anthony, like a Kyle Teal, like a Marcelo Meyer, like, a Josh Nixon Garcia. So like on top of the sheer number of pitching they also had a lot of top tier position play. Christian Campbell's another name to bring up and mention. Like when you think about it, the Red Sox had so many areas covered for the future that they had the ability to kind of mix and match what they already had ascended to the major league level in addition to what they had coming up. And so that definitely follows along with like the line of thinking that I'm talking about, the like good, smart, modern front offices follow is you accumulate the talent no matter where it comes from, no matter where it plays, and then you use that to get what you need whenever you get to that, when you cross that bridge. So, that's why the Cardinals selected J.J. Weatherholt 2 years ago. It wasn't necessarily because they needed a future shortstop. It's because the talent was so overwhelmingly good that we'll find a spot for that talent if need be. And, now he can move to second base. Now he can move to third base. Those are those good, quote unquote, good problems you have. And it's just really refreshing from having watched, the paint by numbers, watch paint dry kind of way that the Cardinals of old regime attacked things. And it's kind of like, the grocery list. I need this, this, and this. Well, I went out and I got this, this, and this. And then, from there, it was just simply filling holes and trying to plug the boat so that way it floated you, down the river far enough that you could maybe get to where you want to go. Well, this has the opportunity for you to, not only float the boat, but you can, take your crappy boat with holes and go get a brand new boat. And maybe that boat has a sail on it and takes you even further than before. So from my perspective, I really like what the Cardinals are doing. I like what they're investing in. And I really like that it is young. It is modern. It is what, most major league teams are doing now. And it feels like the Cardinals are starting to take steps forward towards catching up to where they're supposed to be. And I'm really thankful for like the optimism again, because there for a while I was getting real concerned. Like, is this ever going to turn around? Are we ever going to get back to a point where the Cardinals are, perennial contenders again? Are like teams like the Brewers and the Cubs and the Reds and the teams in our division who seem to rely more heavily on young talent? Are they just smarter and have passed us by? And is it going to be such a wide gap that the Cardinals will never catch up again? Well, not necessarily. And things are quite cyclical. And it seems like the Cubs, I don't know what exactly they're doing. And, they somehow avoided stepping on the landmine at the deadline this year and not like throwing all of their young talent at a young pitcher. And while that cost them for 2025, it didn't set them any further back for 2026 and beyond. That frustrated me to no end, because normally that's what they do, and it shortens their window. It shortened their window and from 2015 to the end of the Baez, Rizzo, Bryant, Contreras era. Like, no longer are they making those dumb short-sighted moves anymore, which makes it harder to plan out further. The Pirates are making moves. They're adding Ryan O'Hearn and Brandon Lau and Jake Mangum and Mason Montgomery, and I'm very jealous about that addition, because that was one guy I talked about early in October, saying the Cardinals need to go get this guy for the back of their bullpen, and that would have fit the mold of the new guys that they're bringing in. I guess all of this tangent to say that I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about what they're bringing in, and I'm excited how they're approaching everything. So after that tangent, we move forward. The Cardinals, now that they've traded Willson Contreras, are in need of a right-handed hitter. And Bloom has spoken publicly about this on KMOX. The Cardinals are now said to be looking for the right-handed player who can play both corner outfield and corner infield. If you guys have any ideas or thoughts on a player that you might think maybe fits this bill, now would be a good time to kind of throw him out. The first name that came to mind for me, and I think it makes a lot of sense, is Miguel Andujar. Seems to be an ideal fit. In 2025, he had a 171 WRC plus against left-handed pitching. He has the ability to play left field, third base, first base, DH. He can do a lot of different things, and I think you need that balance in the lineup to like your heavy left-handed presence. And I think that you could probably get Andujar at a reasonable, I don't know, $7 to $10 million, probably in that one win player range. Do you guys have any thoughts on either Andujar or a specific right-handed name that might interest you?
I'm not as big of a fan of Andujar. Main reason why is because he can stand in left field and he can stand at third base, but he's actually really bad defensively everywhere he's put. Just looking at his stats, he's been worth negative 14 outs above average in about 1,400 innings in left field, which is a little bit more than a season's worth of innings. That's venturing towards like Jose Martinez level bad, or a more recent example, Jordan Walker in his rookie year. He's negative 15 outs above average at third base in about 1,500 career innings. Like, he's really bad defensively. He's basically a DH in my eyes, and his underlying stuff is not promising either. He's got a 296 xWOBA. That's I wouldn't play with his defense. I don't know. In theory, I agree with you, but when I looked at it, I was like, oh God, there's a lot of stuff that scares me off a little bit. Weirdly, Harrison Bader would fit kind of, although he has some of the same like offensive concerns for me, where he seems to have hit way above his ability, and it doesn't really seem supported by the underlying stuff, because he's had a really high BABIP and his xWOBA was 295. The difference with Bader for me is he's good defensively. I'm a little worried about his contract, obviously. So we'll see what that turns out into, but he's been in the league for a few years. Teams can see, what he's been. I don't think this is like, I don't think 2025-6 is when teams are going to overreact to one good year. So I still think maybe you can get him for like a 2-year deal or something. But like, he makes the most sense for the team. Clearly, it's just a matter of what the contract would be. That's my opinion. Well, what do you think about Bader? Maybe
I don't hate Bader, but it doesn't necessarily fit into the infield and outfield like ability, I guess, is what
I don't really think we need an infielder though.
I agree with your stance, but I don't think that Bloom would have said, outfielder who has the ability to play infield, like has specific lanes to play the infield. I don't think he would say that if like that wasn't like his goal or intention to seek that type of player. So
what if he's just hinting that we're gonna get Bo Bichette or something? Because I can't think of any other reason to get an infielder than going big, because they got Nolan Gorman, who they haven't got rid of yet, so I don't think they will. Jose Fermin can play some third base. They got JJ Weatherholt. If you want to go deeper, you could even try to give like I said JJ Weatherall, he's a lefty, but and Gorman's a lefty, but Jose Fermin, I mean, I don't know. I just don't Thomas to JC, I don't see why we would need a right-handed bat to play in the infield unless they were going big. So maybe I'll choose to choose that as a
I think it's more
situation
the
of, oh, we're gonna go for
corners.
Bo Bichette.
It's more the corners than the middle infield. So it's like a Mark Canna, not necessarily Mark Canna, but like that type of player who could play both corner infield and corner outfield. Somebody who can also DH, somebody who offers some balance against the heavy left-handed presence in the lineup. That's kind of why I thought Andujar makes some sense. Andujar doesn't strike out, has a whiff percentage of 17.8, a K percentage of only 14.4%. He doesn't walk very much. He's a little reminiscent of Joel Pozo in that sense, but I guess he's got a little more athleticism to him than a Joel Pozo. That's why I'm like, throw some other names out. Somebody mentioned Luis Rengifo as a name, looking to bounce back from his.
Can I give I have two
Sure.
that I would be interested in. And these are just two guys that I've just kind of been in. They're my two that I've been locked in on for no reason other than I just liked them for the last few years is Austin Hayes and Willie Castro. I know Hayes doesn't fit that infield that you're talking about as well, but I think he's shown that he is a platoon guy. Most of his home runs were actually against right-handed hitters, but he hit lefties, or sorry, pitchers, but he hit lefties at a higher average, and he was above average for the last four seasons offensively, and I think he could be that guy that could give you the innings that you need if Lars Nootbaar is not healthy or Jordan Walker struggles or something like that. And then Willie Castro, I like the athleticism. I was going to write one of my first articles here about how Willie Castro was a younger, less expensive, and better Tommy Edman. Because I think there was a little bit of an infatuation for Tommy Edman, just
Better?
because I think to a point. I think when I was doing a little bit of a deep dive, there was a little bit of things that I think when you figured in the availability, the age, the salary, and all that stuff, I thought he was a better option than Tommy Edman. And I think when the Cubs brought him in, he had that tough second half or post deadline season when I like his flexibility to be able to play multiple positions and not technically be that everyday guy that forces his way to play, but they got the athleticism, a little bit of pop here and there, but also the speed that when he is in there that he can make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, both of those make sense to me. Because Hayes for his career hits lefties way better. Said he hits more homers against righties, but he also faces righties a lot more, so
Right.
that's part of the deal. I think at his 125 weighted runs created plus against lefties for his career, and it's like 97 against righties. So he's got a huge split, which if that's what they're looking for, certainly makes sense. And Castro last year had a 2 WAR season or 2.9 WAR season, then 2.5 the year before. So yeah, he's only 29. So very good bounce back candidate. So yeah, I support both of those guys, honestly.
Mm-hmm. You know who would have made a ton of sense? Who just signed with the Seattle Mariners was Rob Refsnyder. Would have made a ton of sense for this kind of a utility player, but had a 159 WRC plus against left-handed pitching last season. When I go through the list, so like on Fangraphs, if you input right-handed hitter versus left-handed pitcher, and I just put the minimum at like 100 plate appearances, that feels like a pretty agreeable like. Roughly a fine sample size to where you could say that's a fairly reliable sample. I go down the list, and would you have any interest in like a Yandy Diaz? Because apparently Jonathan Aranda has completely supplanted him at first base. Junior Caminero is at third base. I don't know who their DH is, if they have a DH that, like, now that Brandon Lau is gone, maybe Diaz DH is for them, but I also can wonder if the Cardinals might take a little bit of their pitching depth that they've now built up and maybe go grab a Yandy Diaz, if that would make some sense to you guys, because he can play both first base, third base, DH. Kind of makes sense that way. I'd almost
The
imagine.
problem with him would be timeline. I don't know if it makes sense to trade for 34-year-old Diaz for 2026 unless we're more committed to, I guess, winning than it seems like we are. I just think that's like more of a win now move, and I don't know if we're in that position right now.
Yeah, I agree. I
Otherwise,
agree with that state. So like, it's just the first name that kind of caught my eye that was interesting. Um,
because he's still under contract to the Rays for this year.
yeah,
And
correct.
he's got an option for next year, so they'd have to give up. Let's see, how good is he? Was he? They'd have to give up something pretty decent. So yeah, I just think that's a win now move. Otherwise, I think that'd be a pretty good idea.
See, the Reds also made a move recently that made I think it was yesterday. They brought in Dane Myers, who I had stumped for at the deadline this year.
I was gonna text you yesterday.
Yeah, thank you. And it may like they gave up nobody. Ethan Donald Jr. I think was the name of the outfielder that I think the Reds had just drafted this past year. So the fact that they gave up almost nothing for him really frustrates me because where were the Cardinals on that? They really could have used a Dane Myers. So yeah, very frustrating. Going down the list here, continuing to go down the list. Would you guys have any interest in paying down all of Xander Bogaerts' money? Because you could probably get him for basically for free. No.
No.
Marcelo Zuna, would that be a name that intrigues you?
I do not want to
on a 1-year deal.
Experience again.
No,
I'm done with Arizona. Sorry.
I was for it when they were teasing us when they were in contention before the deadline last year, but then
what about
I
a
fell out of love with
Starling
that.
Marte?
Sure.
I mean, he's not really that good anymore, but he's a fun guy.
If you can get him for like an interesting price, now like assume it's like some sort of like pitcher that we have a ton of. Like I don't know what the acquisition cost would be, but I think this guy
He's
would.
a free agent.
No, he's a trade target.
Starling Marte?
No, yes, Marte is a free agent, but I'm moving down the list because you guys have already kind of like
setting us up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think this guy fits absolutely perfectly. I don't know what the acquisition cost would be. How about Davis Schneider out of Toronto?
Let me find out about this guy. Sorry.
He only had a 106 WRC plus against left-handed pitching, but he's right-handed. He has a little bit of pop. Are these numbers just against left-handed pitching, or is this numbers across the entire season? Because that would make it more interesting.
Is there an incentive to why the Blue Jays would get rid of him?
Well, and see, that's the thing is like you would probably more than likely have to give up something that's a little bit more because like they're a little left-handed too between Nathan. Well, no, because they also have Ernie Clement, and like Clement is good, but he also is super controllable, and I don't think that the Blue Jays would have any. So it's like if they view him and Ernie Clement as redundant, perhaps they would be interested in moving a Davis Schneider. But also, I think that they view Davis Schneider not necessarily the same as Brendan Donovan, like the way the Cardinals do, but I think he is a leader in that, like a young leader in that clubhouse that like inspires the team in a way and is like good for their culture. And so I don't know that they would be like itching to get rid of him either. And yes, that he does have control. Let me click on his name here real quick. This is great podcasting, everyone. This is exciting. He's 26 years old. He has just over 2 years of service time. He does have 2 options remaining. He is not ARB eligible until 2027, and he's a free agent in 2030. And so last season, with the Toronto Blue Jays in 82 games, he had 11 home runs. He hit 234, 361, 436, put up a 351 WOBA and a 127 WRC plus. He played primarily left field, but also played games at second base, third base, and 1 game at DH. But I think he would fit a lot of what Bloom was talking about.
Yeah, I would be surprised if the Blue Jays were interested in trading him for all the reasons you just said, like all the stats you just shared. They're fully trying to win the World Series, and I think you didn't really have to wow them with an offer. It's interesting. He didn't seem like the kind of player who would strike out as much as he does, but he does strike out a lot. That's interesting.
I think he's one of those guys that swings really hard, and so like swing hard if you hit it. But yeah. But yeah, no, I in theory, I guess so, but I feel like the Blue Jays will not be interested in trading anybody who could help them next year.
unless it helps them. Unless they get back a piece that helps them in the immediate future.
That's why it's like, would you trade Jojo Romero for that?
They wouldn't take that, but yeah.
Are you sure they wouldn't take that?
Yes, I'm relatively sure.
1 year so like they were in on Edwin Nunez, they were in on Edwin Diaz, they were in on who else was it that they would that went to Atlanta? I can't recall his name. Robert Suarez. They were in on him.
These guys are significantly better than Jojo Romero.
I understand that, but they've missed the boat on these guys, and so they don't really have anyone from the left side of the bullpen either, aside from like Mason Fluharty. But I mean, that's not the same level even as Jojo Romero. So I can see where they'd be like, okay, this is a redundant piece for a piece we need. Let's make this deal. Like maybe the Cardinals include something else in that deal with a Jojo Romero if you think it's light, but that's need for need.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I would take it, but I'm not sure how much value Romero does have, so I'm interested to see. I don't think a guy with 4 years of control who had a 127 weighted runs created plus last year would be on the table for him, though. But I've been surprised before.
Certainly. Like there are scenarios that we probably aren't even privy to that have been thrown around that would probably make us go, "Are you, really that for that? You would do that?" And so it's just like whatever an organization is like interested in executing and making come to fruition could ultimately be their desire. I don't know. That's a big word salad for I don't know. I think it makes sense, but if the Blue Jays didn't want to do it, I'd understand.
Case example is the Grayson Rodriguez trade. None of us would have ever.
Right. 4 years of Rodriguez for 1 year of Taylor Ward. Well, reverse it. Give me 4 years of Davis Schneider for 1 year of Jojo Romero.
Which would still make more sense than the Grayson Rodriguez trade, unless
sure. So it falls under the umbrella of potentially possible, but probably not at all that likely. But maybe who knows? That's about the essential equation of the offseason, which makes it so much fun whenever something actually happens. Unfortunately, we have lost Scott Plaza. He is on dad duties. And so we want to thank him for his time. I'm going to thank Gabe Simons for his time. I'm going to thank you, the listener, for your time. And I also want to say thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. Please make sure to go rate and review us as it helps boost our listenership. And also, please share it with your friends. If you have Cardinal friends that are out there and like listening to podcasts, hey, come listen to our podcast where we ramble about players that we kind of sort of are interested in, but may never actually occur. That's the great baseball quality talk you can come to expect. But next week and going forward, it's not going to be just us. We're going to be talking to actual guests. Next week, we are talking to Cardinals minor league Rule 5 selection Ryan Murphy. 2 weeks from now, we're talking to RJ Anderson of CBS Sports. And then at the end of next month, we will be talking with 1120 KMOX radio host Kevin Wheeler again. So we want to thank them for their generosity of time of coming on our show. And we also want to thank you for listening to this as well. Gabe, have a fantastic week, and I will talk to you again next week. Listeners, have a great week, and we will talk to you again next week with more great Cardinal content. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Viva Alberto's podcast. Please leave a rate and review on your favorite platform and turn on those bell notifications so you can be notified the moment our newest episode is released. As always, make sure to give us a follow on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Facebook. Just type in Viva Alberto's on any platform to find us. Have a great day and thanks for listening.